We slowly started to hitchhike. One night, we were sleeping in the tent when a huge thunderstorm came and blew away the tent. We awoke and found ourselves sleeping in a sea of mud. Quite the experience. I remember looking at the telephone poles and seeing Raji laughing and laughing. Well, we finally met up with Tess and Kathleen. We switched partners. I hitchhiked with Tess to the capital of Zambia. We all decided to meet there. It was quite an experience. We arrived at Lusaka, got out of the car, and moments later, colleague Kathleen got out of the car. We were all standing there when the Zambian came up to us and offered us to stay at his house. We went to his house, a dairy in the country. His name was Gary. We told him what we were doing and where we were going. At this time, our money situation was zero. A few days before, we ran out of money. I was pleased because I would see that everything would be taken care of. Anyway, Gary's uncle was president of the national TV in Zambia. He could arrange a television interview for us. The next day, around 5 o'clock, after the news, we were on national television. I only wore my Indian whites and no shoes. We had a beautiful interview for about 1 hour. The interviewer was very sincere. There was no sarcasm in his voice. The people of Africa were simple and open people. The TV station received hundreds of phone calls asking, "What was that?" The response was so great that the next day we were asked back to the TV station. The same phenomena happened. The Indian community heard us and invited us to their community. Every day we would give discourses in their temples and homes. We were treated like kings and queens. They would give us money, watches, and clothes. We had probably at least 6 major meals a day. It is a custom to accept food at someone's home. Each one of our guests would provide a huge spread. I remember one Hindu temple where the priest would take down Krishna's picture and put up Raji's picture. This is like the Catholic Church taking down Christ's picture. I remember seeing the Victoria Falls like it was yesterday. There was hundreds of monkeys in a forest canopy overlooking this incredible waterfall. Collie and I stood on this bridge, and a 360-degree rainbow encircled us. To this day, I can visualize this waterfall. Well, we finally made it to Johannesburg. It was quite the adventure. Somehow we managed to get a visa for South Africa. I spent about 2 weeks in Johannesburg resting up and living in the Indian community. There were a lot of Westerners, Black, and Indians interested. I was sent to Cape Town to prepare for Raji's visit. In Cape Town, I stayed in the house of Nigel Fairhead. Nigel and his house were great to me. They lived in town in an old 17th century church. Cape Town was a beautiful place to live. The Cape was surrounded by the Indian and Atlantic Ocean. Nigel introduced me to a fellow surfer, Chris Parker. We became great friends. I hadn't spoken to him in over 40 years until recently. We carried our conversation as it was just yesterday. My days in Cape Town were spent in preparation for Raji coming to visit. I would go to the university there and give talks about self-knowledge. The university and student body provided me with a classroom where I could speak. It's kind of funny, I was only 19 years old. The university was real receptive and curious. When Raji came to give a talk at the university, the whole student body showed up. I had a great time with Raji in Cape Town. There was only one other Westerner besides me. He was Gary Gerard and he was traveling with him. I remember at one point I was in Raji's room. We were alone. He was talking about his father, Sri Raji. I remember asking him questions about his father. Raji gave me this magazine that came from England. It contained some of his discourses in England. On the back page was this picture of him. He gave me this magazine and signed it, Sanchi Maharaj. On the back of the magazine, he drew a map of his old school in Dehradun, India. One day we went to the Cape of Good Hope. It was an incredible sight to behold the Atlantic and Indian Ocean merging together at one point. I remember at one point Raji and the group had a race to get to the top of the stairs. I couldn't believe how fast he ran. He beat all of us by a long shot. I thought with all my training, I was fast. When I got to the top, I was breathing quite hard, and Raji was hardly breathing. I remember at one point a South African photographer took our picture. There was three of us, Raji, his longtime bodyguard, Bihari Singh, and myself. We placed our arms on top of each other's shoulders, just like kids, and said cheese. It was a great moment. The following day, we flew back to Johannesburg. I remember Raji passing out Nestle's white chocolates in the plane. We spent another 2 weeks in Johannesburg. Every day, we would have people from all of our race, colors, and creed come to the house. For some reason, the South African government didn't do anything about it. We had Westerners, blacks, and Indians all coming together. There was such a harmony. I flew with Raji back to England. I remember the day after I got back, Raji was speaking to a large group of people. I walked into their room and he stopped speaking and turned to me. He said, "Right now, my body is in England, but my soul is in South Africa." It was a remarkable statement. The South African people captured his heart. We are all shaped by our family. I feel so fortunate to be blessed to be born into this family line. My parents and grandparents raised me to where my life is today. I really was nurtured in love and consideration of others. I learned how to respect life and respect all human beings. The sense of adventure and the sense of learning with joy was instilled in me. Life was incredible. At a young age, I was introduced to seeing the future and bringing ideas into the present. I was only 2 years old when my dad and grandfather built the house of the future. At my young age, my mom and dad introduced me to ethnic cuisine from around the world. To this day, I love trying out different and new cuisines. My mom gave me the sense of travel. She loved to travel, and that was instilled in me. I learned how to appreciate different customs, ways of seeing things, and being open to life. Life taught me to appreciate every country and value its essence. My grandmother Josie taught me the love of God. She'd always say that God loves you. Her mother was friends with Mary Baker Eddy, the founder of Christian Science. My brother-in-law and I loved being in her company. She was a joy to be around. She played the piano and sang many wonderful songs to us. During the winter, she would go to the Palm Desert and bring back pine nuts and fresh dates. She had a juicer that was handed down to my brother after many years of use. My grandfather's cliff hobby was rock collecting. When they came to visit, he would do a slideshow of his current trip. My wife Barbara would have been great friends if he was still alive. As a family, we would love to visit my grandmother and grandfather in Santa Barbara. I remember going to horse shows and going to the Elvis Presley movies. My grandfather would make the world's best enchiladas. I have the recipe on my cooking site. This dish is over 60 years old. I have had many incredible times being with them. During the holidays, both sides of my grandparents would come to visit. I love the sense of family in the air. My brother and I will always remember the times my dad would drive us to go surfing. We would get to the ocean very early in the morning. My dad would drive to Big Corona, and we would surf until noon, and then we'd paddle through the harbor for an hour. My dad suffered a stroke and was in a coma for a month. When he came out of the coma, he was changed completely. For the first time, I saw that he knew it was a miracle to be alive. His entire outlook on life changed. He realized that life is precious. He lived another 10 years after that. He saw that he had a golden opportunity to experience life at its fullest. My mom has taught me to see the bright side of life. If you're down in the dumps, she taught me, and only you can pull yourself up. Attitude is everything. She taught me to enjoy the adventures of life. I gained so much from her and her way of thinking. She taught me not to hold on to the past and to forgive what others have done to you. She has a great sense of humor, which I love. What can I say about my twin brother John? We came into this world together and are such good friends. We had the same path of self-discovery. Both of us have been meditating for over 45 years. He has discovered a passion in writing music. In the past 4 years, he has created over 1,000 songs. He creates songs about life and the incredible journey of life. My daughter, Aaliyah, has really become an incredible person. She is kind, full of wisdom, and loves to help people. She is deeply spiritual without any pretense. She has a great heart. I'm tremendously proud of her. My daughter, Leilani, has really blossomed in the last 10 years. She got married to a wonderful man named Moai. He is from Egypt. They have 3 beautiful children. I love their family. They're an inspiration for me. Family truly is the backbone of life. Chris Parker. I first met Chris in Cape Town, South Africa, over 45 years ago. We became instant friends. I introduced Chris to meditation. Now, if you like to meditate and you're a surfer, you're on the same wavelength. Chris and Nigel are like brothers to me, yet I haven't seen them since my time in Cape Town. In fact, it was until recently that we hook up again. We discovered each other through Facebook. All 3 of us would have Skype sessions, Nigel in South Africa, Chris in Australia, and myself in good old Kansas. We would talk at times for 3 hours. Now that's a good use of technology. It seems just like yesterday. Now, I've known them for probably less than 6 months, yet the connection between all of us is like brothers. I find that fascinating.
This is from Chris Parker, 47 years later. Not long after I met my good friend Rick Fletcher, Raji, as a 13-year-old boy, came to Cape Town. As usual, there was a hive activity around him. He stayed in an Indian Burmese house in Salt River. Although the house was very large, catering for the traditional needs of extended Indian family, it was hardly an affluent area of town. I had just received knowledge and was lucky enough to be granted an audience with the boy Guru in his bedroom, together with Rick and a mutual friend, Nige Fairhead. The latter had previously spent some time with Maraji in his Premnagar ashram in Hardwar in India. Maraji and his family seemingly indulged in untamely luxury nowadays, but it's worth noting that his bedroom then was nothing special at all. It was drab. I don't even remember a window to it. I was sitting between Rick, whom Maraji had called the electric transistor on my right, and Nige on my left. On our far left was Bihari Singh, behind his handlebar mustache, and with a tape recorder and microphone in hand, recording every word that transpired. Maraji was sitting on a double bed between side table pictures of his mother Mataji on one side and his father Sri Hanshji on the other. I asked Maraji a question which I've never been able to remember, maybe because of the power of his answer. I clearly remember when Maraji started to respond. I began to lose focus. I felt he was waffling on a bit. It seemed he was wandering off track, and therefore started to get mentally restless. But after some while, Maraji rounded off his reply with the most resounding and coherent conclusion. I suddenly realized that every part of the long soliloquy he had given was in fact united with the thread of relevance to the topic. I have heard Maraji do this a number of times since, but never with such force. It almost felt like a crack of a whip coming from a 13-year-old boy. The experience was actually quite startling. I certainly was not the only one to feel it, for I remember Rick on my right recoiling backwards and exclaiming, "Oh wow, Maraji, the experience was so profound I've carried it with me for almost 50 years.
When I was living in Miami, Florida, I had this incredible experience. I was with some friends, and we decided to try to channel an entity. I have never tried this before. Anyway, I closed my eyes for a few minutes, and I felt a strong presence of this being. It was the same feeling if your eyes were closed, you could sense the presence of someone walking into the room. This being was full of love and joy. This being was Archangel Michael. Michael was of a teaching was completely different than all the others. It was more on the subconscious experimental level. I could feel this presence enter my body. I was lifted and shifted a few degrees. I was still my body, but my consciousness was altered. His teachings were not of words, but experiences. I felt very close to him. I felt he was a very good friend of mine. Through him, I had experienced that we were part of the same energy pattern. There are infinite energy patterns in the universe, and we are part of a particular strand. Through him, I realized my name was Makaya. I realized I was something of a newcomer to this planet. I learned I haven't been here for 34,000 years. I realized that the reason I loved meditation so much in the early 70s was I loved the existence of being infinite. For thousands of years, I existed without a body. I existed as energy. Michael reminded me of this. Both of us were trailblazers. I didn't channel Michael for very long. At times I still call him and talk to him, but mostly I'm learning on my own. I know probably people would have a hard time accepting channeling, but think of channeling as a form of TV or radio. By simply turning one's mind, man has a capability to tune into a particular frequency. There's nothing magical or mysterious about it. Can you name any sacred book which has not been channeled? God didn't write the Bible, people did. The scriptures were channeled. Do you think that the message only came 2,000 years ago and is no longer available today? We all have a capability, but forgotten how to. Oracles have been around for thousands of years. Just recently, has this phenomenon been taking place inside of our society. From what I've seen and experienced, we have help from the other side to assist us in our own transformation. So many books have been around recently talking about angels when man dies. Isn't it about time we have that experience daily in our lives? Man has the capability. If we learn how to live in harmony, we can be open to it. Western scientists have a hard time buying the facts. We need such concrete evidence. But tell me, what happens when your breath leaves your body? You are dead. Can you bring it back? Try to find out that secret while you're alive. Your life will be transformed.
Tell me about Micaiah.
What desire you to know?
We know about the guy.
All right, what would be a more specific question?
Who is Micaiah?
Who in terms of the whole?
The whole, yeah.
Let me see if I can give forth words. Know you in terms of what is called universal core, essence indeed. There are some beings who direct specific energies at specific times. They are not confined to what would be termed position, as in hierarchy positions say, I just do this or I am over this. This being is not confined. Makes this sense to you?
Yeah, because
It is beyond what normally you think of as the whole. Like a radical. Indeed. So, if this being is allowed to move about and to do things that perhaps you might say, well, that's against the rules, or that is outside of what I have known or heard or learned. What desire you from this being?
well, that name's been coming to me a lot. So I'm just trying to go to the mystery of it.
What does being Richard? Contemplate you that not all beings in this universe at this time not only came from this universe, how say I, some come from essence beings that are not confined to what you consider to be the whole. Indeed. Now, who think you be?
Probably that guy.
Indeed. And is radical. And is not confined. That is why I say to you, if we'll use the word normal. Say a normal being walks through a gateway. Even in going through a gateway, the rules are set. You have come to an understanding within yourself in what is termed your growth, what is called the movement. The rules are not set only by you. See you. There's a truth of us here. See you. You know this thing already.
Yeah. You mean the cosmic jokers, right?
Well, it's somewhat like that. Know you, they are the ones who bring about balance because of what is termed their freedom to move outside the rules, beyond space-time, without a judgment or a thought of it's this or it is that, indeed. The understanding is within the heart that it is greater than either one. Use you this name.
Oh, I use it to myself sometimes. I've just been going for about 2 years.
Indeed, it is an important thing that you not only acknowledge here, but that you have say some things here that acknowledges it to your senses. Understand me?
Mm-hmm.
Desire you, Richard, to speak to what is termed the public?
Sometimes. Well, sometimes I know I have a mission here,
Indeed.
and I mean basically.
I am asking this question for it is for you to contemplate whether you desire to be in what is called the front, so you are seen, indeed, or if you desire to be from behind.
Well, a lot of times I like to be behind the scenes. I don't want to be famous. I don't have any need for that.
It is not about need.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's put it this
It's
way.
about choice.
Whatever I can do to help.
Because I will say this thing to you. It is not that you have to do it yourself. It is that you have the capability of creating a being to do that thing. See?
Mm-hmm.
So it is a choice. However, there are some things that would certainly be different would it be that it was yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How many beings are going to channel you? See? It is part of directing the troops. Understand me this? And that be grand you. But in what is termed, like I have said to this beauteous being, the secret. The secret that you are present, see?
Mm-hmm.
Now, unless you want to share that, it is fine for it to be secret, but it must be known here, within yourself, within your heart. If it is not, then the expression trying to come forth creates havoc for you.
Mm-hmm. So what does that mean, going public?
It means you are a lawgiver, going public. Many things are changing, as you know. And a lot of what has been spoken before, the foundations that yourself and others laid are beginning to come together, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
There is what has been termed some confusion and what is called frustrations. From time past, all this time has passed. I have given up hope and here it is. What do you now? You look at it coming forth and you say, well, will I get burned? Can I touch that thing? Let me see. Indeed.
Yeah.
Now you are more cautious of the picture.
Yes.
It is humor. Now what you have created you think will bite you. Give you this thing teeth? What do you? Know you this thing and that being is called hobby, recreation.
Mm-hmm.
For you, this thing out public, sharing your essence is recreation.
Yes.
That is true.
Mm-hmm.
Feel you what is termed guilty. Indeed, that it is recreation and so easy for you. So how do you rectify this thing, Richard? Within yourself, so there is not guilt. Look you around, you see beings who are in lack of understanding, who are in pain, who are in poverty, who are all these things, and mostly in ignorance, and have you so much and so easy. See you?
Mm-hmm.
Number one, you must let go of the guilt. Or when you touch it, it will bite. Understand?
Mm-hmm.
You must love here yourself and be in love with yourself. That no other comes before. If you do not, it does not mean that you are not within this whole that is here. It means that you are in honor of the being that you are. And you cannot maintain the balance within yourself or perform your service in your easement and your joy and your simplicity. Indeed, if you do not do this thing for yourself. I can skip across this planet because I can. That's it. Indeed.
Indeed.
If I were to say to you, it has nothing to do with earning this reward or earning this thing or this greatness. That would happen a long time ago. Desire you what is done in another ceremony.
Oh, yeah.
I know this thing, understand you. That is why I say to you, very important. It is up to you. You make the rules now. Not the same as it has been. Think you that you can live in what is called your life, and others can channel what is called your being, and we'll all work fine together.
I think so.
And be it that this thing is occurring, and you become aware of it more and more. Indeed. Know what happens to a being who is in a position to teach. And that is not the greatest word. You go around pretending that you don't know.
Yes.
So now what are you going to do? You're not satisfied with that. Be that the truth?
That's the truth, yes.
You must contemplate this thing. What you're willing to do for yourself, for your joy. Yeah.
Now, let's say if I didn't want to do that, what do you do?
What do you mean, where do you start?
Right.
You start with here. Start with those that are close to you, indeed. Start with letting go and letting it be. Simple. And do not, does not require letting go of the other things that you have moving, indeed. A being who is capable of stepping outside space-time, of making the rules, can certainly do more than one thing. And in all honesty, if you did not do more than one thing, you would be very upset at yourself and very bored. Start with getting some beings together. Just some people, like with the beings here, the ones who are close to you. There's another thing here. Yes, it's great, isn't it? Oh, of course, I like it. All of the beings have not allowed the foundation support to be present. And I am not just talking about funds, I am talking about people. The other beings that are meant to be there.
Let me introduce Zoran. Zoran is an entity who is known in other dimensions as Logos. Logos on this planet comes from the Greek word which means word or power. The Bible talks about Logos as the word. In the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. Zoran was the personification of that word. The first time I met him was in Phoenix, Arizona. A few of my friends saw him and said I might like to see him. They said he was real different and liked to teach with toys. Zoran is channeled by Makar. When he comes into her body, he takes over much like Mafu. Anyway, we arrived late to the hall. I see the program is starting. From the loudspeaker, I hear a voice which sounds like Mafu. I'm thrown for a loop and ask myself, why is Mafu's tape being broadcasted through the sound system? I sit down and see that this voice is actually Zoran. I love the way Zoran was. His whole teaching was through games and laughter. He had all these stuffed toys that he would hand out. At one part of the program, he started to pull out people from the audience. He pulled me out and gave me an orange ball. He then proceeded to ask each one of us what this toy meant to you. When it came to me, he asked me about the orange ball he gave me. I told him that orange represents collagen, the substance which ties the cells together. Without collagen, the cells would fall apart. This ball represents a life force which keeps the entire universe together, otherwise it would fall apart. He just laughed and blinked his eyes and said, "Good answer." That night, I was very intrigued by Zoran. I knew that we were best of friends. I wanted to talk to him personally. The following day, a meeting was arranged. The first part of the meeting was spent in such laughter. People outside of rooms, it was like an auditory of people laughing. There was only 3 of us. At one point, Zoran said, "If I laugh anymore, we'll have to leave this physical body. It will cause damage to her body." At this time, the tone became more serious. I learned I was a student of his at a planet called Newton. This school was learning about the way to split open the atom using one's mind. This school was built on practical experience. It was truly a mystery school. Makar and I were both students in this school. Zoran told me many wonderful things. We became real good friends. At one of the seminars, he had always called me. I became a friend just like the good old days. I remember one day he asked me, "What do you think about women?" "Why," I said, "I want to solve that mystery." He said that someone special was going to happen and that very soon I would meet the woman of my dreams. The next day, I had a dream where I met my future wife, Barbara. A voice came to her and said, "When you meet this person, you should get to know them." A month later, I was staying at a friend's house and Barbara walked into the house. I recognized her at once. I played it quite cool because I knew that destiny would be played out. The rest is history. Zoran taught me a lot of techniques of getting in touch with myself. His whole style was through laughter. He said that laughter and joy create such a frequency that it sinks in subconsciously. He had a great analogy that when you go to the bathroom, you don't inspect your stools. He said so many people struggle to reach happiness. Life is not a struggle. Life is not a battle. Life is fun and humorous. I never laughed as much as with Zoran. He taught me a new angle of life. One night in Sedona, I was with 3 of my friends. We were outside looking at the stars in lawn chairs. It was early July. It was a nice evening. The sky was perfectly clear. There were thousands of stars in the sky. We were looking at a strange phenomena taking place. We would see these streaks of light going vertical in the sky. Imagine a huge flashlight sending a flash of light from left to right across the sky. It would come in 1-minute intervals. All of us were delighted in the show. We were making the same oohs and ahs when kids see fireworks. In the midst of a lull, I noticed 3 stars in the sky I never noticed before. These 3 stars formed a triangle in the star. It looked like a pyramid. All of a sudden, I felt myself being sucked out of my body. It was like this huge vacuum sucking me out and out of in my body. There was this tunnel of light. I was traveling inside of this tunnel. We all have seen on Star Trek, The Next Generation, the sensation of warp speed. This is the same kind of sensation that I felt. The next thing I knew, I saw this huge mothership. This ship was so large that there were mountains, oceans, and Earth-like planets inside of this ship. I was greeted by a group of 12 beings. I recognized Saran and Lord Michael. They took me on the tour of the ship. The whole ship had a clear plastic-like substance, which was the outer shell. Inside of this were the mountains. The main engine room was driven by energy itself. They had the technology to convert energy itself to drive the whole ship. All electricity was generated by pure and perfect energy. There was no pollution whatsoever. It's hard to put in words what I was going through and what I saw. It was so beautiful. These beings were so beautiful. They were friendly and extremely intelligent. Their technology was light years ahead of us. At one point, I was placed on this beautiful table. Zoran, Lord Michael, and the rest of the 12 beings placed their hands on my body and started to send me brilliant colors of light. My whole body was enveloped in a rainbow of light. This light was pure consciousness. It was alive, if extremely blissful. I felt all the stress being taken out of my body. It was an incredible ceremony taking place. No words were spoken. There were 12 incredible beings performing an ancient ceremony on me. I felt they were once again reminding me that we are all come from the same source of life. There is a universal consortium of beings who are called the White Brotherhood, whose mission is to transform this universe into something far beyond what we can imagine. There are millions of humans alive on this planet who are part of this consortium. Before we were born, we all decided to come down and help this planet Earth. All the major religions now know that something incredible is about to happen to this planet and the beings on this wonderful Earth. We are to usher in this era along with our friends. Our weapons are simply love itself. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. Our mission is to consciously change ourselves to bring beings of love. Christ was a prime example of this. We all have the same capacity. We just have to stop, look, and listen to what's going on. Here's the most incredible event that's taking place on this planet, and we are asleep. We are too involved in our little lives to stop just for 1 second and ask some basic questions. Who am I? What is the purpose of this life? Where is true happiness? I feel as a society we need to learn about tolerance, forgiveness, and being open-minded. Each of us are so caught up in our own mindset that we can't see that we are flowers on a beautiful garden called life. Isn't it so beautiful that we are all so different, yet all of us at the same time are so similar? The breath of life is keeping us alive, and we are unconscious of this fact. It's time to wake up and smell the roses. Each one of us have to have this experience to remind ourselves to wake up either consciously or subconsciously, even if you don't believe in any of this. Imagine if this is all make-believe. There was a time that flying an airplane was make-believe. It is now reality. There are millions of people on this planet whose prayers are to see peace on this planet. In time, this will have to happen. We just have to bring peace to ourselves. We have to know who we truly are. We are beings of love. We have simply forgot who we are. It is time, as a whole, that we wake up. It's kind of funny, the whole world wants peace and happiness, yet there's so much misery and poverty and grief. The love we have inside is boundless and endless. It is worth more than all the riches in the whole universe. Without it, we are nothing. I know I had many incredible experiences in my life. Many people are envious of them, yet without love, they mean nothing. It's like a body without the breath, no life whatsoever. Our main mission is to be filled with love, that whenever we touch, it turns to love. What would happen to this planet if every citizen on this planet was experiencing such a love? We would have no conflict, war, or poverty on this planet. We would truly help each other out. We would truly know that human beings are incredible beings. Well, I came back and my friends knew that something incredible had happened to me. I told them just a fraction of what happened to me. It was all so personal that I didn't want to blah out or be arrogant. Years later, I felt the time was right to put the experience in words. The incident showed me that my friends beyond the stars were always looking after me in this planet. I knew my days as a young child looking at the stars was based upon an unconscious yet conscious connection with my friends. We are never alone. We have friends who are looking after us. Most of the time, we don't know that.
I have another question for you.
Okay. You can ask me any questions.
Indeed?
Indeed.
Richard, what think you about women on this planet? Man to man.
I like women, but they're a mystery to me.
They are a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you with a mystery, Richard?
I want to solve the mystery.
And how think you shall do that thing?
By getting involved.
Indeed?
Mm-hmm. See, that's one thing I've been trying to do. I see every relationship, I'm learning more and more and more and more.
That is the truth. Richard, think you these women are a lot like you?
How some are and some aren't.
Richard! I'm going to lose it on this one. I knew it was coming. Richard, we must control this thing, indeed.
Indeed.
Here's the thing about this. These women, they want to see what is called a man who is marshmallow and can show it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do this thing, Richard?
I think so. I'm learning. See, I'm really learning to express my emotions now. I think the past 3-4 years, I'm really learning when I'm sad, I'm sad. When I cry, When I'm happy, I'm happy. I'm not trying to suppress my emotions anymore. I'm feeling them in my life.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
It is time for you to express with a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
Indeed.
Now, what are you going to do about it, Richard?
I'm looking.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for somebody who wants to be with me. I'm working on myself in the meantime. I see first by loving myself, automatically I will attract a person who wants to be with me. So that's what I've been trying to do for the past 6 months. Got sidetracked a little often. But most of my time, I've been spending time, number one thing is to love myself.
That is the truth.
But then I know automatically by loving myself, I'll pull someone in who can be a reflection of myself. What can you say on that?
I see this. What color is her hair?
It's black?
Is that what you want, Richard?
I don't care the color of the hair.
How are you going to create a being in no space?
So it's up to me then to create exactly what I want.
Indeed.
Indeed.
Now that's the wisdom, Richard.
Now how will it be? Now if I created it, then somehow it will manifest. I just gotta declare from the Lord God my being that will manifest.
Indeed.
I could go for that totally. Actually, I will go for that totally.
That'd be a good plan. And what I wish you this being to express. In other words, be it a being who is in sovereignty,
Indeed.
who understands this thing called equality and sameness, who has an outrageously large heart, and wishes to do what is called service along with you.
I would love that.
Indeed.
Indeed.
All of those things, you must write them down, Richard.
Okay. I will.
How expect you for what is called the form to be filled without a form?
I never thought of that.
Now that'd be a wise thing to do. Do you that thing?
You got anybody planned for me?
Indeed.
Indeed.
Do you that thing and you shall see what happens.
Can you manifest it tomorrow?
Can you be open tomorrow?
I think so.
Can you allow it?
I think so. Right now, I'm ready for anything that's positivity. I'm running for it. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Indeed.
I'm not stopping for anything right now.
And that'd be wise also, is it not? Richard, when all the muck falls down, let it fall. Just look at it. Who cares? Now thinking about this. Be it perhaps words that are spoken to you, or a job that falls by the wayside. So what? Indeed.
Indeed.
How many what are called eons have you been in this universe on an adventure?
For countless eons.
Indeed.
Indeed.
I will tell you this. You've been fired before. Not the same thing, but different. I know you this also. It was a blessing.
After I had the dream about Barbara, I just let it go for a month. It was kind of strange, but my daughter was the first one to meet Barbara. One night I wasn't feeling too well. My daughter went to a friend's house. At this house, my daughter met Barbara. It was kind of funny. It was only 2 trailers away from me. She was here from the Washington area. She felt in Arizona she was going to meet the man of her dreams. She was planning to go to Egypt on vacation, but her intuition told her to go to Arizona. She ended up in Sedona. A month later, Chandler and I went to a one-day Zoran seminar. I spent the night at a good friend's house. Upon waking up the next morning, I saw Barbara. As soon as I saw her, I recognized her from my dreams. Immediately, I thought of the conversation I had with Zoran. I just chuckled inside. I didn't say anything about experience to her. Well, Barbara went back to Sedona, and I stayed in Phoenix. A few days later, I get this phone call from Barbara. She wanted to know if she could rent my trailer in Sedona. I was planning to spend a month in Phoenix. I said, I'll think about it. I'll call you back. I called back the following day and said, sure. A month later, I went back to Sedona. I thought this should be very interesting. Barbara knew I was coming and decided to spend the night at her friend's house. Well, the next day, Barbara and I met again. We talked the entire day and decided to go rent a video. We came back to the house, and both of us laid down and started to watch the video. Around midpoint of the movie, I held her hand, and both of us felt this incredible energy rush towards her. We were both complete. It was amazing how one touch can change a person's life. From that moment on, we both knew something incredible was going to happen. At that point in my life, I knew I wanted a real, satisfying relationship. I wanted another child. I wanted to be married again. Barbara told me she couldn't have children. She tied for 10 years with her former husband and couldn't conceive. She went to fertility clinics and took the necessary treatments, but nothing happened. I thought, well, having a meaningful relationship might be enough. We spent the early winter in Sedona. On New Year's Eve, I had this Sai Baba dream. The last thing I was told by Sai Baba was I was going to move to San Diego. The next morning, both of us woke, and we said to each other, well, where do you think we're going to move? Both of us said, San Diego. That same night, Barbara had a dream where she was told we should move to San Diego. Well, we moved to San Diego. We got this incredible apartment just one block from the ocean in Del Mar. Del Mar is a real nice, quaint ocean beach town. We both started to looking for jobs. On Barbara's first day, she went to this employment agency. She started talking to the owner and told her about her past jobs. Barbara spent years in the insurance industry. She was once offered $1 million company and turned it down. The owner told her that he didn't have any work, but hold on, I'll be back in a few minutes. I have someone I want you to talk to. In a few minutes, a gentleman from an insurance company comes in. They talk for probably half an hour, and presto, she has a job. At Barbara's first day at work, she finds out he needs a computer system and a computer programmer. Well, who do you think gets that job? I spent the next year working on his system. Is there something beyond coincidence? Maybe synchronicity? After a few months working one day, Barbara realizes she hasn't had a period in quite a few months. She goes to a doctor and finds out she's pregnant. Months later, we have a beautiful girl named Aaliyah. It seems like my dreams really come true. Since we live only a block from the beach, I went surfing a lot. My job from the insurance company ended. I spent the next 9 months working on a visual real estate program. My partner, John Slotsky, and I were both too ahead of our time. We won awards at trade shows, but it was too advanced for its time. We had a few interested takers who wanted to market the program, but nothing happened. This program was one of the first multimedia programs in the States. I wrote a template program that could generate a complete program by designing your program on the screen. It would do everything from your menus to all the multi-relationship input screens. What would take a programmer a week, I could do in a day. I designed this also for my multimedia stuff. I took it to a major software conference and people were blown away by it. This is the first time at the conference they saw a visual database. Unfortunately, the vendor that supplied me the board went out of business. This is the best board on the market. My money was running a little dry, and I got offered a job from the Navy SEALs. This was an incredible job. I liked working for them. The company that I worked for set up a network. I was a database administrator. I wrote about 10 major programmers. The Navy was into training, so I got to go to many computer conferences and seminars. I love the lunch hours. The Navy is really into health and fitness. The Navy has a policy. If you exercise, you can take an hour and a half lunch. If you don't, lunch is only for an hour. I, of course, opted for the hour and a half. They had a huge Olympic-sized swimming pool. I would swim a mile a day. There was also a well-equipped exercise room. When there were days of surf, I would go boogie boarding with my friends. There was a beach right across the street. I remember the day of Desert Storm. I called my wife, said I was going to be late. I didn't know what time I was going to return. I couldn't tell her anything. I was assigned to do this computer program. I only had a short time. Thank you, I had my templates. I developed a program in 6 hours. If I didn't have my templates, it would take about a week. There was a 6-month interval I was allowed to work at home. The Navy respected my work, and they had no qualms about me working at home. They knew it wasn't going to take advantage of the situation. I really had a good life. I would wake up in the morning, meditate, exercise, and then head for the beach for a few hours. It was so wonderful to surf every day. I loved the cold water. I had a great wetsuit. I could stay out for hours and never get cold. I remember many incredible surf sessions. I would love when the surf was overhead. During the winter, San Diego gets many incredible swells. For me, surfing was an art form. Nothing can describe the experience of riding a wave. I was completely in tune with the waves. My daughter Chanda would come out for the summer. She lived in Philadelphia. We had a beautiful time boogie board in Del Mar. The whole family would go to the beach and just play. I felt truly my life was wonderful. Truly my dreams were coming true. Barbara and I decided that she should stay home with Aaliyah. We both felt it was important to raise our own child. At the same time, we realized the financial burden, but it was well worth it. Barbara poured tons of love into Aaliyah. We both knew that love is truly the answer, especially in the first 5 years. Barbara spent these years focusing on our child. It was time well spent. I had a great family life. Both of us were truly happy with each other. One morning, I was driving to work where I had this incredible flash, which only lasted for a second. In this flash, I became one with the whole universe. I was the sun, the stars, black holes, galaxies. I knew everything. I was intelligence. Here I was driving down the highway in rush hour traffic when I had this experience. The experience only lasted 1 second, but it had such an impact. It was like a lightning strike. My whole body and being was so charged. Each one of us can have such a realization. It goes beyond time and space. I wonder what would happen if I could tap into this 24 hours a day. Makes you kind of wonder. One early morning, I was meditating using Mahfu's techniques. I felt such joy and happiness. All of a sudden, I felt this incredible power. I saw this incredible cobra at my root chakra. This cobra was slowly rising up my spine. The energy was incredible. It was so real. I became a little afraid due to the power and the cobra. I knew I would not be harmed at all. I controlled my fear and let the experience grow. The cobra went all the way to my third eye, which is the pituitary gland. At each step of the way, I would have a different experience. I've always heard about the Kundalini experience, but this was the first time I had the experience to see it. The Vedas talk about this experience. The cobra was so real. It was like you had to face your greatest fears, and then and only then could you be taken to a different level of consciousness. It's amazing this experience exists inside of our own being, and yet it is dormant. We are so involved in this world that we simply are unaware of a greater reality. I learned that the scriptures of the past were based upon practical experience. We have simply convoluted the meaning of the experience and came up with a different meaning altogether. I was working for the Navy as a computer programmer. One day I got off work. I was walking downstairs in the main building I was working in. All of a sudden, this alien is behind me. He looks like a combination of a human and reptilian. I had a little fear, but I knew I would be alright. As soon as I reached the bottom of the stairs, I saw the guard look right at me. I was thinking, do you see what I see? The alien was right at my side. I couldn't believe the guard didn't see him. I laughed to myself and walked out the building. The alien still continued to walk by my side until I got into my car. I entered my car, and the alien sat in the passenger seat. He drove with me for about 10 miles. To this day, I wish I had said something to him. I'm still a little bit afraid, not because he was an alien, but this incident caught me totally by surprise. I remember looking at this alien in my car, and I could see him smiling inside. He was friendly, at the same time full of wisdom. I knew I would be okay, but at the same time, there was the eerie feeling that I saw an alien face to face. It's strange in our society, the vast majority of people know there are beings who exist from another planets or worlds, and our government tries to suppress and downplay any activities about UFOs and aliens. Some people might say it was hallucination or a vision. I don't drink, take any drugs, including medical drugs. I get plenty of sleep, etc. This encounter was as real as any physical encounter with any human being I have faced. The only difference was this was an alien. For myself, I knew I had a wonderful encounter with an alien from a different home than Earth. The next time I think I will carry on a conversation and learn more about him. A few minutes later, I was with Saran, who claims to have a mothership within our galaxy. He was taking my family for a walk in Laguna Mountains outside of San Diego. I had no idea where we were going. I had a picnic lunch with me. We probably walked for half an hour. All of a sudden, Saran stopped and with a smile he said, "Do you see anything different about this place?" I looked around and at first glance I thought, "What are you talking about? All I see is forest." Then I started to see what was around me. All around me was a huge circle. Inside of this circle, the leaves, grass, and trees were burnt. I've heard stories about how when a UFO lands, the surrounding area is burned. I know this wasn't man-made or made by nature. It was obvious some craft landed. It was kind of strange that Saran took us on this walk and we just happened to end up there. I will always remember the birth of my two daughters, Leilani and Aliyah. My daughter Leilani was born in the month of March in 1980. She was born in Miami. My wife at the time had a hard labor. I believe it was over 48 hours. Both of us wanted to try a home birth. We found the two best midwives in the area. Anyway, to make a long story short, Chanda, Leilani, finally came out. I remember placing her in a warm tub of water, and this incredible smile came over her face. It was filled with so much innocence and openness. She was totally filled with love. It was amazing for all of us to start out this way, and yet over the years, we start to lose it. My next daughter was born in a hospital. We were planning to have a home birth. During actual labor, while we were at home, the midwives knew she was having heavy contractions and Barbara was experiencing no pain. She got completely into the joy of having a child. Unfortunately, her pelvis area was too small, so we ended up in the hospital. She had a C-section. The moment Aaliyah came out, both of us were in joy. I spent the next 2 days holding Aaliyah as she had to be in an incubator for a short time. Barbara was recovering from the C-section. All human beings have that childlike state inside of them. We have simply forgotten the beauty and the aliveness of that state. Children have an easy time of letting go. And they are mad one moment, the next moment they are happy. We hold our grudges for a lifetime when we go to war. A child ultimately believes in cooperation. A child experiences the love of being alive. It is inquisitive. It gets delighted seeing something new. Have you ever seen the joy on a child's face when it takes its first step? A whole new world is about ready to open up. We need to take those steps like a child in our life. We have miracles happening right before our lives, and yet we don't see them. Our children are the future. It's something wonderful raising a family. I experience a completeness inside of my being. We are so lucky that we can create an atmosphere of love in our home. I think I prefer a family life than being single. At times I think a single person can do anything he wants. They can travel, and of course they can spend money the way it wants. But a family life is a unit. The family can laugh and play together. A family life makes me feel complete. It makes me feel home. A part of me needs that kind of life. When my daughter Aaliyah was born, we decided that my life would take off work for 5 years. We felt it was important to our daughter that we raised our own child. We could guide her the way we felt was right. Financially, we struggled, but it was well worth it. It's a wonderful experience, the love of a family. Love is the power that heals. With Barbara, I'm healing myself from my past relationships. Both of us feel complete. We know that we are to be together. It's wonderful to experience the completeness in one's life. Being single, a human has a hard time developing long and meaningful relationship with someone. With marriage, we go through the ups and downs, and it builds character and love for one another. One thing I see is that no institutions teach about marriage. We go through our lives, we fall in love, and we get married. No one actually teaches that there's a lot more that comes with it. No wonder so much divorce is going on in this world. At times people think marriage is a failed institution or it's outdated. With the right person and with the right values, there isn't anything like it. Have you walked into a home and just melded with the harmony and the peace surrounding the place? This is a place of nurturing. Then you can walk to another home and you just want to walk right out. The husband is yelling at the wife. The kids are totally upset. We are in charge of our own atmosphere. It is our duty to our children to provide a home of security and love. A home should be nourishing. We all can provide that. We just have to change our priorities. I have met single mothers who have provided that atmosphere in their home. It is their priority. They don't have much money, but they have a heart. They create an atmosphere of love in their homes. Our children are the future. Let's provide them with the care that we would like to have. During the 90s, our family moved to Maui. I got a job working for the Halilaka Observatory. Boeing was the subcontractor. The Air Force operates the Maui Space Surveillance Complex. The Air Force was tracking space debris and satellites. One of my first projects was a dome automation system. Imagine at midnight we would have a dome operator who should have a switch to move the dome clockwise or counterclockwise. During the winter, it would get extremely cold. The operator would be wearing a snowsuit. At times during important tasks, they would doze off and fall asleep. I was instructed to automate this process. My friend Paul was charged with the overall hardware design. I was assigned to the software side. The program was written in C++, which I was not familiar with. Anyway, we had a short timeline to pull this off. Paul and his crews installed barcode readers around the dome. We had an IBM pizza box that we used. The basic formula was we had to take the as, pull, and deck positions and calculate where the dome should move to. At times, we had to force the dome to go super fast. When we got to our destination, we had to slow down and then stop. We had to make fine adjustments along the way. When we first tested out the system, we could hear a hum when we were stationary. We quickly fixed this. The system was installed on time. The system was so successful that we had another dome that was requested to have the same software and hardware installed. I remember one day I went to the observatory and they were looking at a tape from the past evening. The past evening, a UFO was spotted on Maui. It was reported on the evening news. Several of the people who investigate this kind of phenomenon had no clue what the object was. They said nobody on Earth makes anything like that. I had a couple of close surf friends who worked there. We worked 4 10-hour days. This included drive time. The ride up the mountain was incredible. As you drive up, you can see both sides of the island. Rainbows would appear and disappear. We would drive in vans and take turns driving. One of my bosses was a surfer, so on good days we would go surfing and then drive up the mountain. Because it was an observatory, no light was allowed. Imagine coming home and seeing thousands of stars. We would listen to Hawaiian music. My favorite singer was Israel. I saw him in concert twice and listened to him on the radio. He played the ukulele and he had this voice from heaven. His melody, as somewhere over the rainbow. What a wonderful world is famous worldwide. It took time to get to know the Hawaiians. As I spent time with them, they would open up and become your friend. Many of them seemed to not care about you, but in time, they opened up their heart to you. I love the Hawaiian spirit, their culture of family and friends. Surfing was a way of life for them. The ocean was in their blood. Whether people believed it or not, they descended from the Moia, which was one of the first ancient races. Many of the Adam and Eve concepts came from this ancient culture. To this day, the magic and mana continue. Many of the kahuna to this day believe in Lemuria and its ancient cultures. One of my favorite surf spots was Pakakalo near Wailuku. It is a river mouth with reef break. One day I surfed it in the morning and it was 4 to 6 Hawaiian. The Hawaiians measured the wave by the back, so our 4-foot wave to them is 2 feet. Anyway, the swell then went to 6 to 8 feet, and then 10 to 12 feet. The waves were so large that when they broke, the ground would shake 25 feet below. I remember that one huge set came in. I was in the right place at the right time. I paddled hard and I dropped in easily. I did a bottom turn, and this huge wave tunneled over me. I was riding with pure delight. My friends were in the channel paddling. They were screaming with joy at what they were seeing. It was probably the best wave of my life. It took a long time to make it to shore. When I did, many of the surfers wanted to kiss the ground because of how large it got in such a short period of time. My family loved Maui. We live in a mountain called Mount, which was upcountry. You don't need an air conditioner or heater. Where we lived, we had a huge avocado tree, bananas, orange, and passion tree. We lived in Maui for 6 magical years. My dear friend John Slowski, Matt Rauch, and I developed on Maui.com in 1996. It was quite a revolution for its time. John did all the graphics for the site. Since then, John has been on the forefront of graphics design. Check out Slowski.com. We developed 3 virtual towns in Maui, Makua, Paia, and Lahaina. Imagine back then, we didn't have Google walkthrough of towns. John and I developed something similar to what we have today. For example, I took photos of the towns in Maui. John then stitched together the photos. Back then, Burmo, virtual reality markup language, was just taking off. By the way, it didn't make it. We created virtual walkthroughs of these towns. You could stroll down the streets and go into surfboard shops and art galleries. You can even buy things. Years later, we have Google Maps. Well, instead of a person walking down the street, they have this car with a built-in camera. They could capture images of a town in minutes. David Schweitzer. I just got up. It's 4:04 in the morning. I'm writing early because throughout the night my mind was going over what to say about David Schweitzer. We've been friends for over 40 years. Why, I log into my computer and there's a message from David. What a synchronicity. I've known David when I lived in New York City. He lived in Hartford, Connecticut. During the 80s, we both moved to South Miami. At some point, he starts making pyramid kits. Around the same time, my wife starts building pyramid kits. They don't know each other. Both of them at the time were studying with Ramtha. They were the only 2 individuals building these kits. Now, David and my wife Barbara had a mutual friend in Castle Rock, Arizona. Barbara went to visit Jim about 3 times. Each time, Jim Mayhew would say, "We just missed David and David Husson," another friend of mine. Now, David Schweitzer, John Byer, and Harry Bartz introduced me to Mafu's tapes. My dear friend Catherine, who I met at the Monroe Institute, got a job working for Shirley MacLaine. Shirley was going on a nationwide tour and giving lectures. Well, they needed a computer programmer, and I get the job. I take a plane from Miami to Los Angeles. Then I get a ride to the office. I spent the day working, and after work, they said, "We're going to a Mafu event. Do you want to come?" The rest is history. Isn't it amazing that in my channeling readings, I was told that I would meet Mafu before Mafu was on the scene? Now, David was visiting California for a period of time. He went to several events. I moved to the Pacific Palisades, and we would take walks in the hills. Now there was a pyramid project that David was going to work on. Mafu called David Hermes. Hermes was the main architect in Egypt for building the pyramids. Now I'm not saying David was Hermes, yet why did David start building pyramid kits? Does our DNA contain blueprints of who we were in the past? We are all stardust. We are the universe. We're just simply these funky human beings. Well, David invites me to join this project. The project is located in Sedona, Arizona. Wow, what an incredible place. I take a plane from LAX to Phoenix. David and David are there. They said, we're going to see Zoran tonight, and would you like to come? So now David has introduced me to both Mafu and Zoran. Is there synchronicity going on? Anyway, I moved to Sedona, and we all share a house together. Eventually, I moved to this incredible trailer where my backyard is the creek. I have more details in this book, but I met my future wife there. She's going to rent my trailer for a while. Both David and David meet Barbara for the first time. They finally could put the pieces of the puzzle together. Who is this David? Who is this Barbara? Personally, David has a heart of gold. I think his IQ is off the chart. He is one of those who can do anything. There are several jobs he has worked on where you need the training. Yet without the training, David comes in and performs. David has had an active acupuncture practice in Miami for many years. He has been using lasers quite successfully in his practice. David studied for a while Zen Buddhism. Personally, I think meditation helps in our daily life. Both my wife and I see David as a great example who brings heaven to earth. Frankly, I think that's the goal in life. If we all did that, then there would be heaven on earth. Meditation is not hocus pocus. Harry barks. It's 2:13 in the morning. I've been sleeping, meditating for an hour. I was thinking and contemplating about the web of life with Harry barks. I first met Harry in LA in 1976, about 40 years ago. It wasn't until the late 70s did we come in contact with each other again. We both moved to South Florida in the late 70s. We were both involved with the same teacher. At that time, Harry was running a tree cutting business. It was great business. There was always plenty of work. Harry hired me and we became good friends. At that time, windsurfing took off in America. Harry took up windsurfing. He invited me to his house, and in his backyard, I learned how to windsurf. I bought a board and it was love at first sight. John Byer and I were windsurfing buddies. During certain seasons, the wind would howl and you would have the time of your life. I didn't see Harry for a while. One day I bumped into him and he told me he finished a year course at the Computer Science Institute. He took basic Fortran and COBOL. I always knew I was going to be involved with computers. Even at a young age, I knew that. To make a long story short, I'm still involved 35 years later. So Harry was a catalyst. Here's the definition. In chemistry, a substance that causes a chemical reaction to occur, but is not itself involved in the reaction. Note, the term catalyst is often used to refer to the prime agent of any change. She was the catalyst for the reorganization. I find it fascinating that life's events helping you to be at the right place and right time. Synchronicity was there. Harry gave me the impulse to enroll and start an incredible career. Yet it doesn't stop there. Harry was one of the ones who told me about Mafu. Fast forward a few years. Barbara and I moved into a house with Linda Graham. Linda's ex-boyfriend was Don Rockman, who in the future, 25 years later, provided the music for my first poetry music CD. It's featured on this site. Yeah, guess who's living next door? Harry Marks. Harry made a ton of money selling computers and moved to Sedona. This was in 1987. In 1991, my family and I moved to Hawaii for 6 glorious years. I got a software engineering job at Maui Space Surveillance Site. My wife and daughter went to Maui, and I went to Portland, Oregon for a few weeks. I had a contracting job I was going to work on. In Portland, I get a call from Harry, and he tells me that Mafu was going to give a 3-day retreat in Ashland, Oregon. He was teaching about ancient Vedic meditation techniques. Now that's a subject I love and dear to my heart, so I went. In 1999, I started working with Charles Schwab as a senior software engineer. At that time, our family was living in Penn Valley, California. I was a telecommuter. Now, Penn Valley internet connection wasn't very good. In fact, it was horrible. You had to use a modem. So I started to look for a community that had a great internet connection and a great high school for my daughter. Well, Ashland, Oregon just recently installed the whole town with fiber optics. Ashland High was an incredible school for my daughter. Guess what? Harry was still living there. During 2000 to 2008, we spent a lot of time seeing Mafu. He liked me. When we first moved there, one day he got off the stage and came up to me and gave me his initiation jacket. This jacket he worn for many of his initiation. I was honored. At that time, I also was involved in a mystery school and used that jacket for the initiations. For many people, they think that channeling was a fake. Well, I met and talked to Mafu many times. We had a relationship that was deep. Like any relationships, you know one another. Yet, there were numerous times I saw Penny, who channels Mafu, and said hello. She had no idea who I was. In fact, I think I spoke to her once when she was reading off the list of attendants for a seminar and said hi to each one. One day I saw her and Rob Spindler was with her. I said hi, and I was walking away. She whispered to Rob, "Who's that?" I said, "That's Richard Fletcher." That really gave me a sign that I had a relationship with Mafu. How can you have a relationship with someone when you never interacted with them? So it makes perfect sense for Penny to say, "Who's that? We have never interacted before." What I like about his group, that Mafu taught about kindness. He taught about compassion. He talked about meditating for the whole planet. He taught universal truths. The universe is kind. That is its nature. Mafu is kind. That is his nature. As human beings, our true nature is kindness. It is just covered up. So here was a group practicing universal truths of love and compassion. It wasn't just words. Mafu was an incredible drummer. Imagine during the winter, it's snowing, and you're on top of a mountain inside of an ashram. It's nighttime, and the wind is howling. Mafu is on stage beating these huge Japanese taiko drums. It's a sight to see. At that time and place, you can be in some remote monastery on top of a mountain in the Himalayas at night. Now, back to Harry. As you can see, Harry has had a tremendous impact in my life. Harry is very kind. In Sedona, I had little to my name, and Harry would treat me to lunch. Harry doesn't say much, like myself at times. He doesn't preach. He just smiles. He has nothing to prove. He loves to meditate. I know he is having a great experience, but he doesn't talk about it. Yet you can see it from his eyes. He is humble. He has served the foundation for meditative studies for over 25 plus years. I call him a few times each year. It's good to connect with a dear friend. Friendships are God's way to connect to Him. Imagine we are the universe, yet we have forgotten that fact. Friendship is God's way of saying, I love you. Treasure your friends. We all have an aching soul that's trying to find its way home. Friendships help soothe the soul. In the fall of 1982, I went to New York City on a business trip. I stayed at a friend's house. While I was there, I heard about a good friend of mine, Paul McLean, who was channeling people's guides. I stayed at one of my best friend's house, Mark and Geraldine. They told me how Paul McLean had these incredible experiences over a period of a year and a half. At first I was skeptical and really had no clue in what they were talking about. I could care less about talking with some person who had been on Earth, left his body, and communicated from the other side. Well, I learned there's a lot more than that. Since Paul and I were friends, I wanted to check it out. I wanted to be open. Maybe something greater would come my way. I met with Paul, and he told me that for a year and a half he would leave his body. In this state, strange things would happen to him. He would hear voices and talk to guides from another dimension. He thought he was going crazy. Over time, he learned more about these experiences and came to terms with his experience. He had the ability to channel a person's guide. At this particular time in my development, I was only aware of my experience as God as a form of infinite energy. God was light, it was sound, it was the Word of God. My realm of experience was a completely different nature. For years, Paul also had these kinds of experiences. He loved to meditate also. In my first meeting with my guides, Paul was put into a trance. It was like falling asleep. He would drift away and this incredible being would come in. His whole being would change. His voice would change to male or female depending on the guide who was present. I was completely blown away. The information that came through was incredible. I knew it wasn't Paul because of the details of my life being described. Paul knew me, but the information that came through was very personal. Paul didn't have a clue about my life in the past. I developed a strong sense of communication with my guides. They prophesied many events in my life. One of them was about that soon in the future I would meet this entity named Mahu. He was an enlightened lord who would come and channeled by a female. I was directed to move to California. This indeed did come true. This experience came at a time that Amaji wasn't even channeling Mahu. I know a lot of people have a hard time with the channeling experience. It's true some people go to channeling so other guides can make decisions for them about their life. But my experience was different. The information that I received was incredible. I developed a relationship with my friends on the other side. Because we are so material, we have lost touch with our acute senses. Man has the ability to be aware of different dimensions. A lot of people in mental hospitals aren't crazy. They truly hear voices. Because our society can't grasp or understand these experiences, we brand them as crazy. Oracles have been around for thousands of years. I went to Paul probably 10 times in a 10-year period. All in all, I had an incredible time. I learned a lot about myself. A lot of sessions were like a psychoanalyst session. I learned how to begin to deal more directly with my life. I took the reins of my life and began to direct it in a more direct fashion. I became my own teacher. I put more faith and trust inside of myself. In the past, I would look at teachers for my guidance. I began to look at myself for my own inner guidance. I learned that God helps those first who help themselves. Below is a small excerpt of my first meeting with Paul. There are no accidents. All things which come to pass are under the will of the Almighty. The one is of good heart and of good will and of an open heart will find there is no end to the workings of the Almighty. There's never a time when your amazement will cease at the wonder of the Almighty. Always there will be new and uncharted borders. Always old things will fall away, and new and brighter, greater things will come to pass. And a time will come when all things, all present consciousness and awareness will fall away to bear a more complete and new state of consciousness awareness. And the old falling away will feel much like death, and the new will feel much like a rebirth into divine kingdom. It is always this way in the workings of the great God. There will never be a time for one who is of good heart and open heart and goodwill when love for his Creator will cease. There will be times when you wish to thank, and times when you wish to hate, and times you wish to cease your existence for pain of longing and time, when you would wish your existence to go on forever, and times you feel neglected, and times you feel the favorite son of the Almighty. The Lord Almighty will move your experience itself to make fall away all present understanding. You must not fear this death, for beyond this death of this sort is always new life, as you learned many times to this point. At times your love will be strained and felt as though it is being tested. This will be given to you by the Lord Almighty, and at times it will feel as though you can't make any step without the sense of grace behind even the smallest thing that you do. There will be times when come which you will ask yourself, where have I stepped awry? And at these times you must remember, you have been guided to precisely to the point where you found yourself by the workings of the Almighty Divine Father. Your faith is strong, for you are goodwill and good heart and open heart. You are this way because the Lord has given you this to you. And yet it is time, as always is time, for ever strengthening bond, an ever greater love, an ever fervent desire, going more in each period of more and more fervent love, which enables you to carry and be about the service of the Father. For in all doings you must request, not simply know, but request that you may serve, that your moment be of service, that your life may be given greater purpose. In each moment, the service of the Almighty. And in each moment, you must ask for knowledge that you are not alone, for it is not enough to know it, but is more to ask. And having been asked to thank, and having thanked to ask again, and to offer yourself in that way which the Lord would have yourself serve. Your will and the Lord's will be of the same intent, for it is of the Lord's mercy that you are allowed and all allowed to be fulfilled in any way which they choose, so long as the love between the two remains the important thing. But those who are truly blessed, who find it within themselves to have this request of service in this way, the Lord would have you serve. This is truly a blessed thing, for even to come to this understanding is no small thing. This is perhaps the greatest level of human existence, for when the Almighty has given all free will to embark upon any road that they so choose, and one with their will, by the grace, finds it within themselves to surrender their will to that of the Almighty, regardless of the consequences, for in the surrender is the fulfillment. This is no minor thing, nor may we all even do so this thing, but these indeed are fortunate who have such a blessing to find themselves in this position. My child, you are in such a blessed state. You must always remember to be humble before God, humble before the Master, and humble before the servants of the Lord's will, giving always from your heart, from the desire to be one with the greatest thing. I am Richard, who has been called the Lion-Hearted, and you and I are a part of each other. Indeed, it may be said that you and I are the same. Indeed, it may be said that at one time we were not apart, but at one time we were the same being. But as time continues, the soul finds in its multiple parts different aspirations. Your aspirations has its duty here, while mine has my duty elsewhere. We serve in our ways as the Lord would have us serve. I here and you there. John Byer. John and I have been friends for 40 years. Wow, time sure flies. We first met in New York City around 1977. He was living in England with his wife and moved back to New York. We became instant friends. During the 80s, both of us landed in Miami Beach and we were exercise partners. We ran usually at night along the beach and then dove into the ocean. We loved to try different things. One day I saw an article in Omni magazine about the Monroe Institute and decided to check it out. I went as you read about my adventures. John went a few weeks later. He became good friends of the Institute, including Robert Monroe. John introduced me to Mafu. He went to a seminar in California during the summer of '87. He came back with some tapes. I was intrigued. Paul McLean in one of my channeling sessions talked about Mafu before Mafu was introduced to the public. John has been a practitioner of Rolfing for many years. This is from his website. John first experienced Rolfing in 1973, absolutely amazed at its results. I sought out every person who Dr. Rolf had personally instructed, and particularly those she chose as her first students, and received many hundreds of sessions of structural integration. I'm currently honored to have the esteemed Emulette Hutchison as my primary mentor, who promised Ida on her deathbed to carry her work forward in its purest form as long as it lived. After training in Hello Work and at the Rolf Institute, I graduated from the Guild for Structural Integration in Boulder, Colorado, and have practiced in the Zuma Terrace building in Malibu since 1997. Dr. Rolf was a genius whose understanding about the body are the reason her method is uniquely effective. Whether seeking relaxation or the deepest manipulation an injury or afflict may require, Dr. Rolf's methods can be tailored for you. I deliver results. Here's a great recommendation from Greg Louganis, the famous Olympic diver. I have worked for John for over 10 years and have done Dr. Ida Rolf's full 10 series with John several times. This progressive and powerful method of sequentially freeing up the physical layers in the body truly creates results every session and generating lasting changes over time. Dr. Ida Rolf once said that her work is something that two people do together. It's hard to understand till you've had a Rolf manual therapy, the active role the receiver has. I have come to this awareness with John's structure integration bodywork. John is a facilitator in my health, and I am equally integrated part in the change of my own healing process. As an adult living with HIV, John keeps me deeply in tune with the state of body, mind, and spirit that I aspire to. Besides HIV positive and now my 50, I intend to always maintain that same active lifestyle I always had. John has and continues to aid me in that goal through his work. John's body work is the best gift you can give yourself. John is terrific, dedicated, and unique in his approach. Thank you, John, as a friend and teacher. Namaste. Greg Louganis, Olympic diver. Throughout the years, we remain in contact with each other. We are on this incredible journey of life. We are all still discovering new things along on this journey of life. Yesterday I talked to John. I discovered our first challenge sessions we've ever did together. I stumbled upon them when I was looking for something else. John was amazed that I had them. It was our first time, so we were real rusty. Remember, it took me a month just to ride the darn bicycle. My brother just jumped on the bike and rode away. Anyway, I'm proud that we dove in. John and I will be friends for life. I haven't seen him in years, but the connection is still there. Kali Rodriguez. I first met Kali in India in 1971. We hitchhiked with Kathleen Cook and Tess Davies from Kenya to South Africa. To this day I wonder, why didn't we fly? But it was an incredible adventure. Read the chapter Travels in Africa. I first learned how to cook Indian food from Kali. She at various times became Raji's cook. Indian food at that time was very exotic and different. Kali taught me the ropes. She taught me the main concepts. I remember Kali teaching me how to cook dal. Dal is one of my favorite comfort foods. There's a step where you get a cast iron pan, heat up some ghee, clarified butter, and place cumin seeds in the pan. The cumin seeds will begin to pop, and the room will be filled with this incredible smell of the roasted cumin seeds. You then add chopped onions, garlic, tomatoes, ginger, and dried chili peppers. This step is called making the chunk. You saute this until the mixture turns golden brown. When it does, this mixture is poured into the dal and makes this incredibly sizzling sound. You have to be careful to use the lid to cover the dal so you won't get burned. Anyway, I have probably made this hundreds of times and I never duplicated that sound. Now I'm a good Indian cook, but Kali has taken it to a higher level. I still remember that sizzling sound in my mind. Kali has a love and adventure for life. She was a great travel partner. She was easygoing and had a great attitude. It was an amazing journey. Kali's grandfather was president of Mexico at some time. Her mom danced with Esther Williams. I stayed at Kali's mom's house in the 70s, and she was a great host. I could see in Kali a lot of her mom. This house was at the tip of Baja. At that time, this part of Baja was relatively unknown, not today. Kali had a great singing voice. She played the guitar and sang these incredible songs. I feel meditation brings the soul to the surface. When she sang, I could feel the sweetness coming from within her. When I think about Kali, I can hear her singing. She had this haunting effect, much like the Irish singers, such as Enya. Music, if done properly, is a manifestation coming from God. I have nothing but great memories of Kali. She will always be dear to my heart. Kathleen Cook, aka Cookie. I first met Kathleen, aka Cookie, in Premnagar Ashram in 1971. I was only 18 years old. Kathleen told me a beautiful story that occurred only a few months previously. Somehow, she bumped into Maraji, a Bihari scene, in the streets of San Francisco. Maraji was given a talk there. Somehow the details are fuzzy. They asked Cookie, if she could drive them to Los Angeles. So she borrows a beat-up Volkswagen and had the adventures of her life. Raji was only 13 years old at that time. Cookie was one of my traveling partners on the journeys in Africa. She remembers the time when taking a train from New Delhi to Bombay, now called Mumbai. The trains were super dirty. I think I had to sleep on the dirty floor. We reached our destination, and we all realized that no one had the directions. I was quite young and naive. Maybe or maybe not. I had no fear. We get in this taxi and the driver says, "Well, where do you want to go?" And I said, "I'll direct you there." So we drive for about 45 minutes. I'm getting signals to turn left and turn right. At some point, I tell the driver to stop. We get out of the car, knock on the door, and guess who's inside? Raji and Bihari Singh. At that time, we really didn't think anything about it. We had faith. At the same time, meditation helps to bring up the subconscious where events like this can happen. Well, we were in Bombay one day. I was in Raji's room when all of a sudden he got off his bed, stood up, and started to wave his hands toward one of his initiators, Ashokanand. The hair on his whole body stood up. It looked like he put his hand in a light socket. He was yelling, "Please, Raji, stop it." After about 10 seconds, Raji's hand fell to his side, and Ashokanand was back to normal. Being the 18-year-old kid that I was, I said, "Hey Raji, do you want to zap him once more?" Raji said sure, and for just a fraction of a second, he raised his hands and put electricity back into him. Raji was electrocuting him. We all laughed. This is my first time that I spent close time with Raji. Cookie and Kali were present in the room. It was so beautiful to play with Raji, at the same time have a great respect for him. Before we left to Kenya, Raji asked us if we wanted any holy water. Holy water is a custom in India where the master places his foot in water. I had only a canteen, and Raji placed his foot inside of the canteen. We all laughed. The next day we headed out for Kenya. On board the plane was Kali, Kathleen, and Tess. These were the 3 girls I traveled with from New Delhi. On board the plane, we drank the water from the canteen. All of us got rip-roaring drunk. I'd been drunk prior to that once or twice, but this was a drunk of joy. We all somehow managed to saunter off the plane. We spent a few days in Nairobi. Tess's parents lived on the outskirts of town. Kenya was an incredible country. Part of it looked like England. It was so much fun traveling with Cookie. We had hardships along the journey, but it didn't bother us. I can't imagine hitchhiking through Africa today. We made it to South Africa. We spent a few weeks in Johannesburg, and then Cookie was sent to Durban, and I was sent to Cape Town to prepare for Maraji's visit. As Maraji was leaving Africa, he told Cookie, Kali, and I to help in his coming to San Francisco. I flew with Maraji back to England. I remember the day after I got back, Maraji was speaking to a large group of people. I walked into their room, and he stopped speaking and turned to me. He said, "Right now, my body is in England, but my soul is in South Africa." It was a remarkable statement. The South African people captured his heart. I stayed a few weeks at home, and then I took the Amtrak train from LA to San Francisco with Kali. We go by the Hollister Ranch, and floods of memories come up. We arrived in San Francisco and catch up with Cookie. Raji came and did a program at the University of Berkeley. I saw Cookie on and off throughout the years. She always inspired me. She loves to meditate. She also became an exceptional chef. She cooked for many people in Hollywood. I didn't know that until years later. My daughter, Aliyah, lives in Ashland, Oregon. And we visit her about twice a year. Well, Guess who moved to Ashland? Yep, Kathleen Cook. We have seen each other a few times in the past few years. I've taken her to an Indian restaurant a few times, and she came to my birthday party at a Mexican restaurant on Christmas Eve. My mom had Mexican food the night I was born, and it's a family tradition. It's always a delight of being with Cookie. She lights up the room. I love her laugh. I can hear her soul coming out. Cookie keeps up in the current events in the world, so conversation can be quite lively. We talk about old times and how fortunate we are. I'm so glad that she is a web in my life. Cookie, from the bottom of my heart, thanks for all you do.
Andrea. Barbara and I have a friend named Andrea. She absolutely loves dragons. Well, as you can guess, we love to spend time talking to her. Many people would think that talking about dragons would be a waste of time. The dragons wouldn't think so. But within our minds, the dragon's worlds exist. Did you know that the mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and the external world? It's all one and the same. Personally, many fairy tales have a sense of truth behind them. Can you imagine that with our physical eyes we can only see about 1% of the light spectrum? Wow. Yet we think we see the world as it is. Maybe, just maybe, the folklore yesterday was based upon the mind filtering the quantum field. Fairies, hobbits, and dragons were seen in the mind's eye. Mind you, the quantum field is beyond time and space, yet the mind conveyed it as the dragon's world. As good old Albert Einstein once said, imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, where imagination embraces the entire world, stimulating progress, giving birth to evolution. What is a dream? Is this world a dream? We come and go, like a flicker of a candle. Have you ever had a dream that was so real you thought this event actually occurred? Once I had a dream as a kid that toy I wanted was under my bed. It was so real. Yet, when I woke up, I looked under my bed. Maybe, just maybe, both of them are dreams. Kathy from Maui. This came from Dragon Tales. Kathy was another female dragon. She was quite colorful. She had colors of pink, orange, and red. She was extremely funny. She also knew how to put wood on the fire. She was like a rebel today. She was definitely non-conforming to the dragon's world. An interesting fact while living in Hawaii, My wife and I met Kathy. She had dragon tattoos all over her body. She also told my wife in her conversation that she came from the dragon world. Her husband drove a Charlie motorcycle. Our society would say she was a rebel. She also had a heart of gold. Barbara and I were great friends. Barbara and Kathy were great friends when we lived in Hawaii. You can't tell a book by its cover. She had a heart of gold. Kathy was an incredible healer. People came from all around the world to see her. Unfortunately, she died in the early 2000s. She'll always be in Barbara's and ours heart. Look at the similarities. Look at the similarities between the characters in the first book and this book. Do we carry over personalities and traits from before? I find it interesting that little Ricky, who was a dragon thousands of years ago, back then he traveled from Europe to Tibet. It took around 3 months. Now, little Ricky in this lifetime traveled from Europe to India, carrying a surfboard. Little Ricky knew that in India he would truly learn how to meditate. In fact, his initiation was like a carrot on a stick. It was so powerful. It's still his motivation today. When we come into this world, do we subconsciously remember our past adventures in life? Where did little Ricky get the idea that he wanted to learn how to meditate at such a young age? Most of his friends thought it was totally weird and strange. Yet little Ricky could care less. How did little Ricky get the idea to go to India and travel around the world? He was only 18 years old. Was there a guiding hand which led him on his travels? Both little Ricky the dragon and little Ricky the human loved to cook. They loved to try and cook ethnic recipes from around the world. Little Ricky was even born into a family who loved ethnic cuisine. By the time little Ricky was 5 years old, he was introduced to cuisines from all around the world. Both of them got quite good at mastering their craft. In the past, little Ricky and little Johnny learned how to surf in Peru. Charlie, the dragon, introduced them to the world of surfing. In this lifetime, little Johnny first had the divine remembrance of surfing in the past. To be honest, little Ricky didn't care at first. But as soon as he caught his first wave, he was hooked for life. Surfing was a huge part of his life. Most of little Ricky's friends love to meditate. Is there a glue which ties them together? It seems like they're riding the same wave in life, yet each one is riding the wave differently. Is this why there's such a grand connection between us? Does meditation truly unite us? Why does Barbara and little Ricky still talk about dragons today with Andrea? To be honest, that's about the only subject they talk about, except for meditation. Is there a thin veil separating us from our past? Do these conversations directly relate to our past connections? Take David the dragon. He was the one who discovered acupuncture. In this lifetime, what was his passion? Meditation and the art and science of acupuncture. It seems like many of our passions come from the past. Many people are opposed to channeling, yet David introduced little Ricky to Zerant in the 70s. His entire life was changed dramatically. No words can express the transformations that have occurred since then. Through Zerant, little Ricky met Shay. Both of them loved to meditate. Shay passed away a few years back. Little Ricky and Shay still remember each other's today. You see, you are never alone. Your friends and family and ancestors are still alive. They exist inside of your heart. Are we too stubborn to see them?